And just to be respectful of everyone's time, we're going to go ahead and kick things off and get things started for our webinar today. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us. My name is Lisa Jordan. I'm the Managing Director of the IEA, and I'm the Executive Director of the Charlotte Executives Association. And I've met many of you. Hi, Leg, good to see you. Met many of you and glad to see some new faces on the call today. These webinars are offered once a month. We offer them for free as an IEA member. They're free for you to attend and they're free for you to host. So if you have a topic that might be of interest to other business owners in and around the United States and or Canada, then certainly reach out to me. I'll put my contact information in the chat and we would love to talk to you about hosting a future webinar. Also, just a very quick plug for the IEA conference coming up in, where is it going to be? I know Ira and John know, Las Vegas. That's right. So we are really excited for the IEA conference this year. It's being put on by the IEA board. We're working closely with the Las Vegas execs, though, and looking forward to see many of their members at the conference, as well as many of you. Strongly encourage you to attend. Also encourage your board members, your executive director. There's going to be content for everybody. We have our lineup of speakers posted on the IEA website, IEAweb.com, if you want to check that out. It's really about a day and a half of content. September 24th through 26th, we're at the Tuscany Hotel and Casino, which is just behind Bally's off the strip. And we have, like I said, a day and a half of content, and then also lots of fun. We're kind of playing off the old Vegas mob theme, doing a private event at the Mob Museum. And we also have a lot of speakers, some doing some fun speaking things like the history of Vegas and the mob, and then also really great, obviously, business topics like using AI to help grow your business. Also hybrid employees, how that's working and not working, and how to keep them engaged, and lots of info there. So if you're interested in more details, check out IEAweb.com, click on over to conference, and we would love to see you there. Now, I am pleased to introduce Kelly Laverty. Kelly is a certified business coach that has a passion for helping business owners and entrepreneurs achieve their full potential. He teaches how to implement changes to enable growth and improve business management with proven concepts that can transition any business from its current state to what the business owner wants it to be. Plans are developed in key areas related to achieving success, like leadership, time management, and goal setting. Kelly has over 31 years of experience with some of Canada's most successful organizations. And Kelly comes to us from the Calgary Executives Association. So with that, Kelly, take it away.
Great. Well, thanks, Lisa. Thanks for the kind introduction. And yes, I'm from up in Calgary, Alberta. The weather's not like it is in Hawaii or even Charlotte, but hey, it is what it is. And yes, I've been a member of the Calgary Executive Association for, I believe now it's about 13 or 14 years. So I've been with the group for a while, and I'm quite pleased and honored to have the opportunity to speak to you guys today about some of the things that, well, a very important topic that comes up in a lot of my business conversations with my clients when I'm doing business coaching is all about trust, and where does trust lie in an organization. And I aligned myself with an organization called Trust Edge about 2 years ago, and learned a lot about what the Trust Edge Institute is doing in understanding trust. We talk about trust a lot, obviously, but it comes down to a matter of how do we implement that? What do we know about trust? What are the things that affect trust? How does trust affect our business? And so in the next roughly 55 minutes, I'm going to give you an overview of really what's almost a 2-hour presentation. We're going to cut it down to meet our timelines, but hopefully I'm going to give you a flavor for what trust is made up of and how some of the things that you can manage within your business, some highlights of things that you can do to improve the trust, either with your people within your organization or even with your clients when you're working with clients. So let me get started. I'll start by sharing my screen. And let's do this. And oh, here we go. We got to click those two boxes, Lisa. There we go.
There you go. You did it.
All right. Now, can everybody, okay, so from the beginning, let's do this. All right, how are we there? Everybody
You're
able to?
in. You're good. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, like I said, you know, what we're going to talk about is trust and what that really means within an organization, and talking about really the case for trust and how much attention we should be paying to trust whenever we're dealing with employees, or, as I say, clients as well. So Warren Buffett probably puts it well in that, you know, trust is like the air we breathe. When it's present and we have it, nobody really notices because we take it for granted. But at the end of the day, when it's absent, everybody in an organization notices that the organization, the people, individuals may not be trustworthy. So what does that really mean? Because at the end of the day, the number one question that everybody asks these days, it's not about, do I like Lisa? Do I like Kelly? Do I like John? It's about, can I trust those people? It's all about asking that question. Everybody's asking about you. Can I trust you? Can I trust you to do what it is that you say you're going to do? Can I trust you to accomplish what you had set out to do? And that's where, you know, in our environment today, trust is playing such a major factor in everything that we do, decisions that we make, people that we hire. And so what we want to talk about or recognize is that everything that we do, everything that has value, is built upon trust. And hopefully, as we go through this presentation, or as I should say, I guess, presentation, give away my Canadian identity. But at the end of the day, it comes down to a matter of recognizing that everything that we do of value is built upon trust. Okay. So here's a little clip for
Buddy, your sister wants to try something. It's called a trust fall. She just learned how to do it.
Okay.
You want to try it?
Sure.
It's super easy. All right. What you need to do is you close your eyes, and then you're going to fall, but she's going to catch you.
Okay.
All right? You promise to get your brother, right?
Yeah.
All right. Good. So close your eyes. Now go catch your brother. All right. On the count of 3, I want you to fall, but she'll catch you. 1, 2, 3. Oh.
So, what is trust? Do you think that young fellow is actually going to trust his sister much longer to do that again? What is trust, and how do we define it? You know, sometimes it's different in everybody's mind. In this particular video picture here, you can see that there's a high level of trust, especially the last guy in line, that this guy on his moped or motorcycle is in fact going to clear everybody. Huge trust factor. And it transcends not only from people, but also even our four-legged friends recognize that, hey, there's a certain element of trust that we have. This little cat obviously is trusting that this group of German Shepherds are going to stay exactly where they are. So what's that trust based on? Well, we're not really sure, are we? But the reality is that there's a trust factor there. So how do we define trust? Well, as we define it from the Trust Edge Institute, trust really is a confident belief in a person, product, or an organization, right? Now, that's a far-reaching definition, but essentially it's that confidence that a person, a product, or an organization is going to fulfill the expectations that we have of that entity, okay? So with that in mind, you know, let's recognize that, or that every change in trust has an impact on so many things in our business. And just a minor increase in trust will increase the output in an organization, morale, our retention rates, how productive we are, how much revenue we can generate. All those things are going to increase, while at the same time, costs will go down. We'll have fewer problems. There's going to be less suspicion or in an organization. Fewer people will be leaving our organization. And probably one of the key things, of all of this is that ultimately it reduces stress within an organization. So even if we can tweak our trust levels just a little bit, we're going to have an impact on many of these things in this slide here. And think about it in the context of one little change can increase your revenue, reduce your stress. People always say, well, we have a very trusting organization. People trust me. There's often not a question whether or not trust exists. It's a matter of whether or not we can increase the amount of trust that we have by understanding what impacts trust from day to day. Okay? So some of the research that Trust Edge has done recognize that the number one reason why people want to work for an organization is that it's all about they can trust the leadership. The number one reason. It's not about, the desire to look at, an organization that's making a lot of money or making a really innovative product. The number one reason why people go to work for organizations is because they feel they can trust that leadership. Okay? In addition to that, 9 out of 10 people, this probably doesn't surprise many people, 9 of the 10 people surveyed would not refer the product or services of an organization that they didn't trust. Okay? So that's very telling in the context of what's the message that an organization is sending to its customers and the people that they hope are going to spread the good word about what their organization does, what services they provide, and how well they do it. Recognizing that, half of all the baby boomers would work longer hours, be a better team player, be more loyal if they trusted senior leadership more. In fact, traditionalists basically surveyed say the same thing, as do Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. Basically, it's half of all the people would work longer hours, be a better team player, be more loyal if they trusted senior leadership more than they do today. Okay? So think about the impact that would have on an organization's ability to generate more revenue, more earnings, less attrition, if people could trust their leadership. And so, it's one of the things that we really need to think about is how well our leadership's people, how much are they trusted? Again, in this survey, 48% of all people surveyed have invested $1,000 or more based purely on trust. Even more surprising is that in the US, more than 13 million people invested over $100,000 based purely on trust. So we're talking about a lot of money here, right? But it's 13 million out of over 350 million people, obviously, in the US. So trust obviously plays a factor in what we do with our money, and how do we influence, how are people influenced in the context of trusted relationships, or how other people are trusted in terms of, let me back up, how many people, how their opinion changes. It's all about having a trusted relationship. 64% of the people, it's based on the relationship that they have with people that are going to change their opinion. It's not about advertising. It's not about a news source. It's not about social media. It's how well we connect and how well a relationship we have with people that's going to influence their opinion. Okay? Now, this is the interesting part, is that only 13% of the people that were surveyed completely trust their current employer. It's an astoundingly low number, at least in my opinion, particularly when you look at the flip side of that, as I was saying before, that people, would stay around longer, they'd work harder, they produce at a higher level, they'd be more loyal if they could just trust their leadership more. So there's a huge gap in opportunity, for leaders to become more trusted individuals than they are today. A lack of trust is, in fact, viewed to be our biggest expense. When you look at that on the surface, people go, how can that be? Well, when you look at everything that is associated with the lack of trust, there's an expense associated with that. I go back to when I was probably longer than I want to think, but my grandfather owned a produce farm up here actually it was in Quebec. And he had no livestock. His living was based upon apple trees or fruit trees, including apples and plums and pears and a huge garden of vegetables and things like that he depended upon selling his produce. But what he didn't take it to market. He would have basically, he would pick, he had 350 apple trees, so quite a few apples. But he would basically pick those and put them in bushels. And if anybody doesn't know what a bushel is, it's a huge basket that holds about 42 pounds of apples. And he would sell those apples for, I believe it was about $3 a bushel. But he didn't man he would put them out at the front of his driveway, and he would leave them there, and people would come by and they would pay basically on the honor system. They would grab a bushel of apples, put them in their car, leave their $3. And or if it was vegetables, it was basically the same thing. So he had no expense. He had no expense of people needing to man it. His only expense was actually picking the produce and putting it out there. He didn't have to make change. He didn't have to have customer service. People would pick it up and they would leave. Well, in today's environment, clearly that would not be a recipe for success. Now you have to basically pay a wage to somebody to man that booth. You'd have to pay a wage for somebody to be able to, or have cash flow to be able to make sure that you could make change. All of those kinds of things. Now the world is different. Think about how much we spend collectively on a global basis on protecting ourselves from cyber attacks. And why do we have to protect ourselves from cyber attacks? Because we don't trust people out there in the marketplace to not play by the rules, or, basically we know that there are people out there that are trying to attack everything that we do. So we have to protect ourselves because organizations or people are not trustworthy. So recognize that a lack of trust can be your biggest expense in any organization. Right? So think about it. And when you've got the clients that you're working with, what is the lack of trust costing your team and your organization? Is it increasing our costs, and what expense? Are we missing business opportunities? What is lack of trust costing your team? Okay. So when we look at a little deeper, peel the layers of the onion back, we look at the pillars of trust. What's involved in generating or securing a trustworthy organization? Well, what we found is that there's basically 8 key pillars of trust that we all need to pay closer attention to, and recognize that any one of these things can reduce the amount of trust that people have in an organization or of a leader. Okay, so let's look at them in first one by one. First, clarity. So here's a message on a sign outside some sort of a business. Not sure what that's trying to tell us. Always open or closed. How about this? Kind of a very cryptic message there. Not sure that I'd be wanting to have my swimming pool filled by these organizations. Is the message clear? So when we talk about clarity as the first pillar, what we're trying to recognize is that 95% of all workers in this survey were unaware of their company's top objectives. 95%. I was quite taken aback by this number because in what I do as a business coach, I try to make sure that organizations are disseminating their information about what their top objectives are. How do their people know what it is they're going and where they're going? What's the vision of the organization? But this survey, maybe counters that by saying that 95% of all workers don't know what those top objectives are. So why is that important? Excuse me. Well, as we talk about clarity, making sure that people within an organization have clarity around where that company is going. And there's two elements of clarity that we need to address. One is strategic clarity. And what is that? What do we mean by strategic clarity? Well, it goes back to making sure that people understand the goals, the direction of the organization. People say, well, we do it once a year. We have our AGM or we have our annual kickoff meeting, and we tell people what our priorities are. But the reality is that people aren't going to remember them. And unless we're sharing that vision on a mission and vision and direction and what every 21 days, people forget. They don't know what those objectives are, right? And what happens when we don't know what those objectives are? There's misalignment in terms of what are the priorities. At the top of the organization, people believe they're going down one direction, but by the time it gets down to the bottom of the organization, we don't know what those priorities are. I often have, clients where people within their organization will say, is this a higher priority than that? Well, the question is, how does it align to your goals? If it doesn't align to your goals, well, I don't know what my goals are. Now we got a problem. Okay. So unclear priorities, play havoc with an organization where if we can communicate what it is we're trying to do, where we're going, then we get alignment on priorities much more clearly. Okay. By the way, folks, if you want to interject, I've left some time for questions at the end, but if you have questions as we go along, feel free to ask questions. It's not a problem. Okay. So how do we increase clarity from a strategic perspective? Well, what we call it is a 90-day quit plan. We try to get people to recognize that, looking at a plan out maybe 12 months is probably too long. We get them to try to focus within the next 90 days. What is it that you're going to do in the next 90 days that are going to provide some strategic clarity? And when we say, what are you going to do? I literally mean, what is it that you're going to do? And generating or driving this 90-day plan really comes down to a couple of things. One is, where am I now? This is a pretty basic thing. Where am I now? Because we don't know, if we don't know where we're going, right? Or we don't know where we're starting, how do we know where we're going to get there? Where do we want to be on that particular mission in the next 90 days? Right? 90 days. It's a reasonable target. It's not too far out where we think it's going to be 12 months. Well, I don't really have to get at that for the next couple of months because I've got 12 months. And then that's, 3 months go by. Well, I've got 9 months. I can still get there. After 6 months, I think I can probably still get there. Well, guess what? When you get down to the last stroke, as like I like to say, is that when you run out of runway, it becomes really impossible to try to achieve those goals. But if you focus in within 90 days, then you can, achieve something that's going to allow you to get to where you're wanting to go. Question is, why are you going there? Right? And then when we got those three questions answered, then it's, how am I going to get there? And pay attention to the next two, because it's all about the next three questions are, how am I going to get there? How am I going to get there? And you got it. How am I going to get there? We have to ask the question, how are we going to get there? So it's almost like finding the root cause to a problem. If you start asking the question, why, after a number of times, you will get to the answer to the question. This is no different to what can I do in the next 90 days, or what do I need to do in the next 90 days? But what can I do today or tomorrow that's going to affect that, our ability to get to where we're trying to go, okay? And sometimes we have to ask how more than 3 times, because the key to making sure that we've got a 90-day quick plan is recognizing that what are you going to do today or tomorrow that's going to chart your course to where you need to go. Okay. So how am I going to get there? How am I going to get there? How am I going to get there? It's action oriented, right? And should be things that are going to happen, like I say, within the next couple of days. Okay. Okay. Look, we seem to be. So again, just probably a little more overemphasis, but how are we going to get there? Right? In communication clarity, in terms of how we're communicating, you're going to see later on how this comes together, is that the number one action that increases tenure within an organization is open and honest communication in the workplace. So how are we communicating? Maybe we're not, and this is all about, the first pillar is all about clarity. How are we getting clarity on what it is that we communicate to people? Because better communication, everybody has the shared meaning. We understand the same thing. We're all on the same page. If we don't ensure that we're on the same page, then we all go in different directions. So to communicate clear expectations, we call this the ODC method, which is, how do we explain the desired outcome? How are we setting a deadline? And how are we making sure that we're allowing people to clarify, ask questions, so they have clarity on the direction that we're asking them to go? Okay. Okay. The thing to remember on clarity, which is our first pillar, is that people trust the clear, but they distrust the ambiguous or the over complex. So making sure that people, we are very clear on what it is we want done, where we're going, what we're trying to do. And that is your first pillar of creating trust within an organization, because clarity unifies and it motivates people, makes them feel that they are part of the team. We've got a shared meaning. We're all rowing in the same direction. The second component the second pillar is compassion. People put faith in those who care beyond themselves. And who's the person that you generally overwhelmingly is considered to care most about any of us? It's usually mom. Because mom will always put you ahead of herself. Right? Now, maybe some moms don't, but overwhelmingly, mom is considered to be the person that's going to care about, their kids, their spouse, their probably nephews and nieces before they care about themselves. Right? Generally speaking, however, as you look in this chart, people at the top don't always show that they care about people below them. So where do you want to be? Because if we're compassionate about other people, that's one of the elements of how we build trust. how do we show that we care beyond ourselves? Right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So if we believe in that philosophy, showing people that we care about the results, we care about, the experience that they might have with your product or service. What solution are we providing? How are we solving a problem for them? When we show that compassion, then they build trust, or we have trust in them. Why do people leave an organization? Because they feel that they are underappreciated. Right? Nobody cares about me. Nobody cares about what it is I'm doing. So I'm going to go and try to work somewhere else. Right? How to combat that is what we call the laws of compassion, or the law of compassion, is that we listen, we appreciate, we show appreciation, we wake up and be present in a conversation with people that are important to us, that we want to have trust us, and we serve selflessly, putting ourselves or them before us, show that we care more about them than we do about ourselves. So when we talk about providing, appreciation, how do we show that? Well, the SPA method is all about being specific to what it is we're trying to show our appreciation for. Make it personal to people that, that you're talking to. Engage them. It's not a general team type of thing. When people want to be appreciated, they want to know that you're appreciating them personally. And how authentic are you making that, that statement of appreciation? Oh, great job, Mary. Really glad that you did that. Does the boss really know what it is I did, or is he just telling me because somebody said that he needs to tell me? So this is no different in terms of providing feedback to people. It's that positive feedback, quite frankly. It's about be specific about what you're providing the feedback or the appreciation for. Make it personal, that individual, and above all, make it authentic. Right? As Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Right? So when we talk about compassion, make sure that our people know that we care about them. They will trust us. Think beyond yourself is what it comes down to. Our third pillar is all about character. People notice those who do what's right over what is easy. Another phraseology of this that many of you may have heard is that, people do the right thing, even when people aren't looking. So what is our character, right? Do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. That's our character, right? So there's 3 key questions that I'm going to pose to you, to think about, on character. The first one is very, very pointed and well, would you follow you? You have to ask yourself that question. Would you follow you as a leader? And then, of course, the B part of that question, regardless whether that answer is yes or no, is why. Why would you follow you? Or why wouldn't you follow you? Take that self-assessment, right? Do you have decision-making values? So when we talk about character, what are your decisions based on? Right? And if you have decision-making values, do you write them down? Do people know what they are? Because if people know what those values are, it's going to build or enhance your trust with them. Right? Do you incentivize against the character you want to see? Right? So in other words, if you're wanting a true and open environment, right? One of your key values is honesty and integrity. Yet if you change a decision that's been made that you led people to believe that, you made a decision one way, and now you've changed your mind. Or if somebody in your organization is doing that and you're allowing them to do it, are you incentivizing against the character that you want to see? So think about the actions that people take, right? Does it counter what you want to see as the way of character? Organizations, of character. So what is it that we should probably be doing? Well, define what character is, communicate it within your organization, hire for it, assess it as you go along the way. Are we moving off track to what our character really is? Reward it when it exists and discipline it when it doesn't, right? And most of all, you systematize how you want character within an organization. So character, extremely important part of a pillar of our trust, because humility is the first step into ability. Competency, or fourth pillar. Learn to fly. Not sure I'd want to be learning to fly with this person, right? Or how about this? What's the competency of this person who had one job to do? Doesn't look like they did it all that well. The element of competency and how it factors into trust in an organization is, how am I staying fresh, relevant, and capable of what it is I'm supposed to be good at? Right? If we don't stay fresh, we don't stay competent, what's our value to the organization, and how do people look at us from a trustworthy perspective? Knowledge is 5 times more value than positive ratings from a salesperson's perspective in our survey. So being knowledgeable, understanding what's changing in the environment. How are we keeping up with things? We all know that technology and everything that we face today, it's quite a challenge to do that. But the reality is that if we want to be trusted, we need to stay relevant. We need to stay on top of things. 76% of people believe that ongoing training in an organization would help them trust their employer more. One of the analogies, or situations, I should say analogy, is that Chick-fil-A, who, let's put aside all the political stuff associated with Chick-fil-A, but Chick-fil-A in the last couple of years generated $4.4 million of revenue per store in the US. That was almost double what McDonald's make per store. They work 1 day less than McDonald's do, yet they're able to generate almost twice the revenue. The research shows us that it's not about the product. It's about the training that Chick-fil-A put into how they train their people. From the people cooking the food to the people that, from a service perspective. And people put a lot of value in ongoing training. So what is it that we could do in terms of building more training into our organization so that we are more competent? How am I staying relevant? Well, it's input versus and equals output. What are we doing on our own? How much with the information that's available out there for all of us today, what are we doing in terms of gathering that input so that we can generate a better output? What do we avail ourselves of? What do we expect our teams to avail themselves of so that we can generate or provide better output, right? People have trust and confidence in those who stay fresh, relevant, and capable. We must be increasingly competent in these areas that we want to be trusted in. We can't let time pass us by. We can't let technology pass us by. We can't let economical situations pass us by. We need to stay competent in those areas and knowledgeable. Commitment, our next pillar. I'll let this image speak for itself, as well as this one, right? How committed are these guys going up the escalator into the fitness center when there's stairs right there, right? Now, this is commitment, right? This fellow here is quite committed to his cause, no question, right? But people believe those who stand through adversity, right? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Number one action would increase retention of employees. Keep our promises. Sounds pretty basic, but I just had a client last week where I did a survey with some of his team members, and one of the key things that they said was that he doesn't keep his promises. We love him to death. We love working for him, but he doesn't keep his promises. He overpromises and underdelivers. So think about that in terms of the trust context. Do we have an accountability culture? If not, how do we create that? Do we set goals? Do we make sure that, there are certain metrics? Are we checking in with people? Are we making sure that people are accountable to deliver, what they're expected to deliver? And accountability is not equal to responsibility. Responsibility is about things that you've got to do that you're responsible for. Accountability is about providing results. And in today's environment, we get paid based upon what we deliver, not how many things we do. So are people fully accountable? How do we make commitments and keep them? Right? Connection, our next pillar. People trust those who are willing to connect and collaborate. Okay. The number one motivation for persevering on a particular project is how people collaborate with each other. And it's not the reward. It's not the fear that they have. It's how well they collaborate. That's how they build trust, right? What's the number one, it's the number one trait of the most magnetic people in the world? Well, they find ways to connect. And there's so many different ways that people can connect with each other. They can tell different stories. They can get together and think about how to solve a particular problem. They're transparent with each other. They're vulnerable, right? They're willing to admit their vulnerabilities. If you read a gentleman by the name of Patrick Lencioni, one of his books is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And one of the key things that talks about in that book is making sure that you trust people, and when you can't trust people or there's an issue of trust, admitting your vulnerabilities to each other is a great way to start. Because if I can admit or recognize that I'm putting something forward that I feel pretty vulnerable about, I can probably trust you going forward with anything else. Ask questions. That's how people connect. People don't connect over email or things like that, or, it's a matter of making sure that we can connect face to face and ensure that, we are developing a relationship with the person that we're trying to connect with. That builds trust, right? Because as a team and as a collaboration, as they say, nothing great has ever been achieved alone. Contribution, second to last element of trust, right? You can see here by this note that Frankie is, well, at least he or she has admitted that they're a freeloader. I earn money at home by, he or she does not earn money at home. They're a bit of a freeloader, right? And so at the end of the day, people look for immediate results. They respond to results. What we say is, how do you get, there's a model that we call show the example, how you get results, how you contribute. Make sure that people know what the expectation is of contribution. Do we provide them with the education that they need? Are we providing them the encouragement along the way? Probably the the most important, at least from my perspective, E of this model is how are we empowering people? Empowering people makes them feel so good. It's inspiring when we empower people, but they have to earn the right to be able to be empowered by you or by the leader of an organization. So what are we doing in, when you look at the other education and element, how are we teaching? How are we training people, right? How do we extend our trust to them? How are we contributing? So we got to be able to contribute in a matter of being able, it's doing, not saying builds trust. We can talk about trust all we want, but we got to be able to contribute ourselves, to an organization. And finally, consistency. Looking at this graphic, how consistent is this organization, right? It's always the little things that we have to do over and over and over again that make the biggest difference. And how we build trust. And how people look upon us and whether or not we should trust you or not. Thinking about, you can probably all think about a number of things that organizations just don't do consistently. And if they don't, then you don't know what the outcome is going to be the next time you use that service or that product. So recognizing that every interaction, we either increase or we decrease trust. Right? Go back to that chart at the beginning of this webinar. Are we in fact increasing those elements that are going upward in terms of our revenue? Or is it decreasing our stress, decreasing our cost, increasing productivity? What is it that we do that's impacting our trust lever within an organization? So at the end of the day, it comes down to a matter of, without intentional action, nothing happens. As the slide here says, atrophy is guaranteed unless we do something. Healthy things grow. And that's what we're talking about, this whole trust aspect, is that how do we grow trust? Oftentimes, again, talking about this particular topic, people go, well, we're trustworthy. People trust us. People come back and do business with us. That's not the question. The question is whether or not we can even get better at getting people to trust us more by looking at these 8 pillars to be able to say, could I clarify better? Can I be more consistent? Can I be more compassionate so that the organization can grow? Right? One inconsistency can change your perspective almost immediately. Right? Organizations don't change, people do. So how do we help people make sure that they change in a positive way, not in a negative way? So again, just to sort of finish off the 8 pillars again: clarity, compassion, character, competency, commitment, connection. How do we contribute? And finally, consistency. These are the 8 pillars that we view are the important parts of building trust within an organization, growing trust in an organization, growing trust in a customer base. And you've seen the impact through the conversations that the previous slides in terms of the impact on employee satisfaction, employee tenure, just in terms of the knowledge base that people, gain as a result of exposing them to solving different problems, being engaged with certain things. So do the work, comes down to a matter of how do we work? How do we make sure that these things that what we take away from here in these 8 pillars to build that trust? Because at the end of the day, when people trust a company, 91% buy from them, 76% will recommend, 55% will pay a premium. That's an important part, because those of us that are exposed from a sales perspective, if a client base will trust you, they're not as price sensitive. They will allow you to charge a premium to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, you can charge a premium. 42% will express positive experiences online. And then we know in this day and age how important that is. And finally, 26% bought shares in a company that they trust. So remember that everything of value, everything that we do, is built on trust. And that's my presentation in a little over 50 minutes. So I'll stop share and open it up for questions.
Thanks, Kelly. That was very relatable and informative. I like your use of examples and illustrations there.
Good. Thank you. Thanks for the feedback. Appreciate it.
Does anyone have any questions for Kelly?
Hi, Kelly. Richard here.
Hi, Richard.
From your experience working with companies, how does the trust factor is generated from? Is it more from the top down in terms of company culture, or is it something that you got to create broad base within the employees?
I would say, excuse me, Richard, typically it's from that top down. It's got to be, in terms of, I believe, and I see it every day, is that the leaders within an organization, they don't create the culture, they enable a culture to be created within an organization. And so from that trust perspective, they've got to be able to, all those 8 pillars, coach them on making sure that, is your message clear? Are you making sure that your people are are you as committed as your people are? So typically, it's usually from the top down that enables a culture to, one, happen, and 2, succeed.
And one other quick question, with so much social media and influence from outside of an organization, how do leaders or companies maintain that trust when they're bombarded from the outside by perhaps negative messages? What is your experience with that?
Well, I experienced that typically with my clients that are B2C type customers. And when you talk about like those kind of Google reviews and things like that, it's a matter of, one, being responsive to it. But it doesn't mean that of laying down either. And where a customer is maybe unreasonable in what their demands are, what their statements are, I don't have a problem in pointing that out, that may not be exactly how the things transpired. But the foremost thing that I think is important is when we make a mistake, that we've acknowledged that we've made the mistake, and here's what it is we've done about it. So that's the intent, to try to be able to show, hey, that we're committed to that customer, obviously within reason, but it's communicating that commitment to the customer.
Oh. Okay, great. Thanks,
Did anyone
Kelly.
else lose sound?
No problem.
Hi, Kelly. This is Kathy Clayton in Seattle. I just want to say thank you. I'm a personal coach, and I work with a lot of business owners, a lot of executives, and I found your material to be very helpful. And I'm excited to begin implementing some of what I learned, and I'm going to keep you as a resource.
Absolutely, Kathy. Be more than happy to, after today, any calls that you want to have, conversations that you want to have. As I mentioned at the outset, this is probably squeezing about a 2-hour, or even in some cases a 4-hour workshop into an hour. But I wanted to give you guys the sense of exactly what that's built up. So more than happy to work with you, help you out. Just look me up, give me a call.
Great, thank you so much. I have to leave now.
Okay, thanks, Kathy.
Thanks, Kelly. We appreciate it.
Not a problem. Yeah, and like I say, you know, my information is available. If you want to email me, if you want any more information, feel free to give me a, well, I probably should put my phone number on there too. If you want my phone number, it's 403 585 6653 is the best spot to get me. And if you have any follow-up questions or need any more information, by all means, give me a shout.
Will do. Thanks, Kelly. And I also wanted to mention that this is webinar obviously was recorded and will be available on the IEA YouTube channel by the end of the week. So if there's someone in your life that you would like to share this with, you're welcome to do so.
Perfect. Great. Well, thanks, everybody. Sorry. So Ryan, yes, my phone number is 403 585 6653. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully that was helpful, and you know, give you something to think about as far as trust goes.
I think it was great. Thanks, Kelly. Everyone have a great day.
You too. Thanks a lot. Bye for now. Thanks, Ryan.